Good evening and welcome. Tonight, more northern states relax COVID-19 lockdown directive, banning religious gatherings ahead of the Ramadan festivities. Concerns grow in Delta State over coronavirus death rates, with state government relaxing lockdown directives. Police authorities clarify directive on restriction of movement to assist health workers, journalists, and other essential duties are exempted. And the latest World Health Organization figures show the largest daily increase in cases since the outbreak began. Plus business, news from Abuja, the FCT, and later from our studios in London.
On business news tonight, PPPRA gives oil marketers permit to begin importation of petroleum products, ending over 2 years sole importation right of the NNPC.
On sports news tonight, the International Paralympic Committee IPC bans former powerlifting champion Esther Oyema for 4 years.
And from Abuja, Ebonyi State Governor raises concern over influx of Almajire in the state as Anambra State intercepts truckload of travelers.
Bauchi State has joined other northern states in easing the lockdown restrictions. The state governor, Bala Muhammad, eased the lockdown restrictions on religious worship in the state effective from Thursday, May 21st. From now on, church services and Friday prayers will be allowed to hold, while Muslims will observe the Eid prayer and markets will be opened on a daily basis. This decision was taken at a stakeholders meeting held early in the state capital. But the caveat is that people must continue to adhere to social distancing rules and other precautionary measures remains. The governor warns that Eid celebrations must be low-key.
Partial lockdown imposed on the state is relaxed, and the relaxation would afford the people of Bauchi to attend their places of worship, the Friday worship, the Eid grounds, and the churches. But in doing that, they will continue to practice social distancing and all medical measures, including wash of hands and wearing of masks. And that the lockdown, total lockdown in Azare, Katagum, Zaki, in Giade is also relaxed. As from Thursday morning, all people are free to go out their normal businesses, but exercising the following measures.
Staying with the lifting of the ban on religious activities in some northern states, we've been joined now on the News at 10 by the Bauchi State Governor, Mr. Bala Muhammad. Mr. Muhammad, thank you for joining us on the News at 10. You have just joined the list of northern states that have lifted the ban on religious activities despite health officials' advice against religious gatherings. Do you think you're taking a risk here?
Nothing is coming in.
We do seem to be having problems hearing the governor. I will be trying to reconnect with him and get back to that conversation. In the meantime, the highest Islamic decision-making body in Kano State, the Council of Ulamas, has disagreed with the decision of Governor Abdullahi Ganduje to lift the ban on religious gatherings in Kano State. The chairman of the council, Sheikh Ibrahim Khalil, who stated this in an interview with the BBC Hausa service, said the body was not consulted before the ban was lifted. According to Sheikh Khalil, the move could jeopardize the fight against COVID-19 pandemic. He is also appealing to Kano residents who may attend the Jumat and Eid al-Fitr congregations to observe the COVID-19 prevention guidelines of wearing face masks and keeping distances. Over in Delta State, the government is worried about increase in the number of deaths associated with the coronavirus in the state. Stigmatization of COVID-19 patients has been identified as a major reason for people presenting themselves late for treatment, resulting in fatalities. As such, the search for active cases has begun in 6 local government areas in the state with very high tendencies of community spread.
Delta State is relaxing the COVID-19 lockdown in response to the recent clamor by residents of the state, but it is retaining restrictions on interstate travel as directed by the federal government. A breakdown of COVID-19 cases in the state shows a total of 28 confirmed cases. 10 of them are active cases, 12 discharged, and 6 deaths recorded. The death rate is a worrisome one, and the government admits it is due to failure of affected persons to present themselves at the isolation centers for fear of stigmatization.
I appeal to Deltans to rise against stigmatization of COVID-19 positive persons, as this has a very negative impact on the willingness of people to attend hospitals for care or show up for testing.
We have a responsibility to enforce it as individuals, irrespective of where you are. So you should also tell your brothers and sisters, except if you are alone. And let us also say, you don't also wear this thing for policeman. You put it as if you are using it to cover your beard, and when you see a security man, you cover your nose. Are you protecting the policeman or you're protecting yourself?
But if there is any other thing of great concern for the people, it is for the government to sustain its enlightenment campaign.
Government should do more of orientation and educate the people that COVID-19 is real.
Everything that happens in this country, there must be a difference. You can't use it to compare like other countries. Yes, it happened in those places, but they are feeling well. Everybody is feeling okay.
The government records that about 400 people have been tested already, but it is determined to ramp up testing to prevent further spread of coronavirus.
In the meantime, over 1,800 violators of the restriction order have been arrested by the police in Lagos since the pronouncement of the lockdown to curb the spread of COVID-19. Only 39 of them pleaded not guilty and are presently in police custody across the state until their adjourned court date. During a pre-charge enlightening talk, the Commissioner of Police, Hakeem Odumosu, emphasized that arrests of violators will continue.
Some of the violators already charged with non-compliance to COVID-19 containment measures are waiting at the entrance of the old task force in Alausa Ikeja for vehicle identification. The mode of operation here is in stages: proof of payment of the stipulated fine, car key location, vehicle inspection and discharge.
When there is lockdown and we don't have anything in our home, so I have to go to the market, Oyigbo market, and as I'm coming back from Oyigbo market, they hold me in Yanoworo.
They arraigned me to the court and I was told to go and pay the sum of 50,000 naira as a fine. And I've made the payment, now I'm here to pick up my car.
At this storage facility within the task force premises, there are quite a number of motorcycles and tricycles waiting to be crushed.
We still have some who, maybe out of ignorance, out of deliberacy, violate the law. And these are those that we have now. One day, just 113. Just between yesterday night and today, and a few other ones. Clubs have been stopped, religious activities suspended, joints, beer parlors suspended. Anything anybody is doing, one is 8 o'clock, a person should go to his or her bed.
The police insist residents must comply with the directives on containing the spread of COVID-19, as the command will not hesitate to arrest more violators.
So that you will go within good road. Police is your friend.
Now in Kwara State, authorities have returned a loaded Toyota Hiace passenger bus, which defied the interstate travel ban to Niger State. The Deputy Governor and Chairman of the State Technical Committee on Coronavirus, Mr. Kayode Alabi, gave the directive during a parade of the driver and the 30 passengers arrested with the bus. The Deputy Governor frowned at the bus driver for risking lives and directed occupants of the bus to be escorted and handed over to security agents at the Kwara-Niger border in Jebba. He noted that the government would not allow anyone to further import coronavirus into the state. We can now speak to the Bauchi State Governor, who joins us now live on the News at 10. Governor Bala Mohammed, thank you for joining us on the News at 10. We've been trying to reach you. I'm glad we finally have. Now, you're one of the few state governors who've lifted the ban on religious activities, despite the advice of health officials. Don't you think that this is a huge risk you're taking?
Thank you very much, my sister. We have to take the risk because we have reached a level where we believe we have achieved so much in terms of bringing down the spike in the escalation of the pandemic in Bauchi. Yes, we are number 5 in the country. We have 225 cases, but because we have really taken the issue of contact tracing, surveillance, and other aspects of management of the whole pandemic, we have achieved a success to a level that the number we have discharged today is much more than those that have been treated. And of course, everything has not only flattened in terms of the graph, it has nosedived. And of course, this advice or the statement by the WHO is very instructive. We have to manage this. And we have gone beyond just making sensitization. We have been able to achieve community buy-in, because we are discussing with the stakeholders, the community leaders, the ward heads. Everybody is on board. It has now become the problem of the people. People are wearing masks before we even made it compulsory. People are enforcing on those that are suspected to have symptoms and so on and so forth. In other Katagun, where we had the rise that we now have 63, people have come out to really comply with all the lockdown measures. And of course, everything has stabilized. And we believe we need to test what we have achieved. We have just suspended this for 2 weeks. Lockdown is not the solution of this. It is the case management, it is the contact tracing, it is the surveillance and the community buy-in, so that we can stop this, the spread in terms of community engagement.
But everything you have said, it does comply with WHO directives, except the fact that you're allowing people to gather in large groups. Now, the Kano State Council of Ulamas is unhappy with the decision you have made, saying that it was not consulted. I think Kano is also one of the states that has also lifted the ban on religious gatherings. Did you consult with the Council of Ulamas in your state before making this decision?
We are the only state that have deepened stakeholding. We have 6 emirs, and all the members of the ulamas and the clergy were there. We are about 70 trying to sit. We sat down and discussed this issue. I didn't just take a decision. And my sister, we are not under Kano State. Kano State has been our problem because they are really transporting this to Bauchi. Whatever happens to Kano happens to us, and we are very conscious of that. That is why we close our local government that are contiguous to Kano and Jigawa. But certainly we have been able to stop people going to Kano through every other means, and we have this border closure is working. And we are trying to see whether what we have stopped is working. We cannot continue to keep people in the under lockdown, but certainly we have consulted with all the stakeholders and people are happy. In terms of social distancing and making sure we use face masks, hand washes and what have you. We have really made it a community responsibility, a union responsibility, not only a government matter. So in Bauchi, everybody is on board. If tomorrow there is a necessity for us to do a lockdown, we'll do it and everybody will accept because there is no suspicion, no mistrust between us and the people. We are really engaging the people and all the stakeholders at every level, and everybody is happy. And then we said it is not yet Uhuru. We will do this for the time being so that we can see what we can do to manage and walk along so that we don't kill ourselves under the pandemic, because the economy is important and life must move on.
Governor Bala Mohammed, I'm sure you understand the concern here is for us to keep trying to flatten the curve. Thank you again for joining us on the News at 10.
Thank you.
And in part two, after the break, 292 stranded Nigerians return home from Saudi Arabia, begin quarantine in Abuja. Stay with us. Welcome back. If it has joined us, you're watching the News at 10 live on Channels Television Lagos. A reminder of our top stories. More northern states relax COVID-19 lockdown directive, banning religious gatherings ahead of Ramadan festivities. Concerns grow in Delta State over coronavirus death rates, with state governments relaxing lockdown directives. Police authorities clarify directive on restriction of movement, insist health workers, journalists, and others on essential duties are exempted. And latest World Health Organization figures show the largest daily increase in cases since the outbreak began. ChannelsTV.com has more information on our top stories and others. Subscribe and watch Channels Television's live stream on YouTube and other social media platforms using your mobile device browser, or download the Channels TV app for Android and iOS devices from their respective stores. You can also watch us via your smart TV platforms on Apple TV, Android TV, Fire TV, and Roku. We're in Cross River State, where Governor Ben Ayade has directed the lifting of the ban on religious gatherings with effect from Sunday, May 24th. This is confirmed in a statement from the governor's special advisor on media and publicity. Governor Ayade conveys his appreciation to the Christian Association of Nigeria and the entire Muslim community for their cooperation during the suspension of public worship in the wake of the coronavirus outbreak. He, however, insists that the use of nose masks is compulsory for all worshippers, while churches and mosques should provide buckets for hand washing or hand sanitizers. Still on efforts at flattening the curve of the COVID-19, a zero-contact testing center has been launched in Zamfara State as part of measures to protect health workers and significantly increase testing capacity. Governor Bello Matawale, while inspecting the facility in Gusau, the state capital, said that with the sample collection booths, the state government has succeeded in cutting costs of using new personal protective equipment to test each patient. Governor was conducted around these sample collection booths by the leader of Flying Doctors Healthcare Group, who explained that they have the capacity to collect 70 samples per hour without direct contact with suspected cases.
Zamfara has a unique set of issues. Number one, it's one of the largest states in Nigeria, but the population is quite small. So you have a very, very large landmass to cover, and some sparsely populated rural areas that need to be taken care of. So it's a difficult, looking at the situation, it's quite difficult to cover all that area. Lagos State, in contrast, is one of the smallest states in Nigeria. Not many people know that, but actually in terms of landmass, it's one of the smallest states in Nigeria. Zamfara is one of the biggest. So Zamfara has a lot of areas to cover, But in terms of what I've seen, I've been to the isolation center, and it seems that everybody is appropriately trained, everybody is appropriately equipped in terms of PPE to manage the epidemic. And I think that Zamfara is taking a very, very proactive approach to testing, making sure that they're testing as many people as possible to ensure that they have the numbers, they have the data to be able to plan and predict, which I think is the right approach.
The deployment of new testing equipment may prove a stitch in time after 8 medical doctors in Zamfara state tested positive to COVID-19. This was confirmed to Channels Television by the state's vice chairman of the Nigeria Medical Association, Dr. Manir Bature. He says the doctors were infected in the line of duty at various public hospitals while attending to patients who were already infected. Dr. Bature appeals to the Zamfara State Ministry of Health to provide medical workers serving in all public hospitals with personal protective equipment and improved hazard allowance. Meanwhile, the spike in the COVID-19 cases across the country following the easing of lockdown order has prompted the federal government to scale up enforcement of the curfews and restriction on interstate movement. As part of this, some state governments are easing restrictions on religious gatherings, as we've said earlier, as the end of the Muslim Ramadan fast approaches in anticipation of the festivities. In this next report, our correspondent, Orelua Shonibare, examines the implications of such mass gatherings in the face of efforts at containing the pandemic.
The latest figures of COVID-19 cases across the country. The numbers are on the increase, which should be a cause for worry. But with state governments assuring that monitoring is under control, there's been an ease on the lockdown order, allowing for a certain level of freedom for people to move around to conduct their businesses, provided they follow the rules of hygiene and distance. Owing to how packed their services usually are, religious bodies were also affected by the lockdown rule. But recently, some states have rescinded the decision. This, for Muslim faithful in the Ramadan mood, is good news, as the fasting rounds up in a few days.
Christians and Muslims are also free to resume their religious worships in churches and mosques. In doing so, however, they must ensure the observance of the rule of social distancing and all other safety protocols.
Partial lockdown imposed on the state is relaxed, and the relaxation would afford the people of Bauchi to attend their places of worship, the Friday worship, the Eid grounds, and the churches.
Although the number of COVID-19 cases in most of the consenting states may not be high, but there are a few like Bauchi, Katsina, and Kano that ring alarm bells. Distancing itself from this is the Kaduna State government, whose governors refuse any form of gathering, insisting Muslims should conduct Salah prayers in their homes.
Once you allow people to come out, then they are going to troop out in thousands you cannot control. And the point is, we have stayed for 2 months on lockdown. We are afraid that one single day will come and spoil all the gains we have, because Kaduna is one of the states that has the least infection rate.
Clearly, there's a line drawn on this matter, and those responsible have taken decisions felt to be in the best interest of their citizens. The hope here is that with the issues being faced by the Nigeria Center for Disease Control and Contact Tracing, the idea of reopening churches and mosques will not complicate the efforts being made to contain COVID-19 from spreading to unimaginable levels. Orelua Shonibare, Channels Television News.
Here's Linda now with more on the news at 10. She's in Abuja. Hi, Linda.
Hello, Amarachi. Welcome to Abuja. Now, more Nigerians have arrived in the country in continuation of the plan to resettle them from parts of the world as a result of the COVID-19 pandemic. The Minister of Foreign Affairs, Mr. Jeffrey Onyama, announced on his Twitter handle today that 292 evacuees stranded in Saudi Arabia arrived in Abuja yesterday, courtesy of the Saudi government. A large number of them are nursing mothers and children, and they are all comfortably settled in hotels under the mandatory 14 days quarantine. He didn't mention if and how many more are expected back to the country. According to the federal government, over 4,000 Nigerians have indicated interest to return to the country. Some evacuees earlier arrived from the United States, United Kingdom and United Arab Emirates and are quarantined in hotels in Lagos and Abuja. In the southeast, Ebonyi State will not allow infiltration of Almajiris from the north into its territory under any guise. That's the emphatic declaration by the state governor, Mr. Dave Umahi, during a Security Council meeting at the Government House, Abakaliki, the state capital. The governor says any Almajiri found in the state will be sent back to his state of origin. He also commended some of the northern governors on their decision to repatriate Almajiris to their states of origin. And while briefing on the latest of COVID-19 cases in the state, Governor Umahi announced that a 3-year-old child who tested positive is now negative.
Nobody believes that we have 13 cases as at today. And I want to say that unless the people of Nigeria advise themselves, it's personal advice, we have not seen anything yet. It's not a time to blame government. Mr. President has done his best in this thing. The governors have done their best. It needs personal sacrifices from everybody for our own lives. So it's not a question of blaming government, blaming government, blaming government. Government can do nothing without the people. So let us observe the policies of using nose mask, washing our hands, reduce going out. We will not be afraid to say no Almajiris in Ebonyi State before now. And the northern governors, I commend them. They say go to your state of origin. So why will the youth that want us to fight take to the social media to start saying Almajiris are coming to southeast, that they should be allowed? Is it part of the social distancing? We will not allow in Ebonyi State. Ebonyi will not allow Almajiris. They should go to their state of origin.
Now, residents of Anambra State are still raising concerns about the influx of people from other states, despite the federal government's order on restriction of interstate movement. The President General of the Anambra State Association of Town Unions, Mr. Alex Onukwe, is one of those worried about this, following the interception of a lorry carrying 33 people from Jos Plateau State, a large number of goats, motorcycles and other goods in Awka, the state capital.
Earlier this week, during an unscheduled visit to the state border, Anambra State Governor Willie Obiano expressed concern over the influx of people into the state.
That is clearly unacceptable.
Days after, some residents are also raising an alarm over the flagrant disregard for the presidential directive banning interstate travel.
The communities of Anambra State can no longer fold our hands and watch on as our lives are being threatened by the mischievous inclinations of some unpatriotic citizens who can go as far as hiding human beings between animals and bags of cement or whatever and smuggle them through the northern parts of the country down to Anambra State and the southeast. Whatever be the intentions of these unscrupulous individuals, we consider them most ungodly and totally unacceptable.
Go, empty.
The residents under the aegis of the Anambra State Association of Town Unions are appealing to the security agencies to be more strict with enforcement methods.
No one is against people pursuing their legitimate living or moving from one state to the other. Anambra State is one of the most open states in the country that you can think of. So we welcome people into Anambra State, but not at this moment in time. When everyone is trying to save their loved ones and save their lives, people are moving with extreme recklessness as though the times are normal.
For now, the erring travelers are led back just outside of the state border, with warning that subsequent cases of violation will be treated with the penalties it deserves.
Private individuals, corporate bodies and non-governmental organizations have continued to donate to the less privileged to cushion the effects of the COVID-19 pandemic. One of such non-governmental organizations is the Preli Foundation, which has donated food items to Kuruduma community in the Federal Capital Territory. The foundation says there are plans to reach more communities in the FCT.
Kuruduma community is located within Asokoro, an affluent area in the Federal Capital Territory. But the community, despite being surrounded by wealthy individuals, is inhabited by some of the poorest people in Abuja who live below $1 a day. Their situation has been made worse by the COVID-19 pandemic, as many here have to make their living daily. Today, help has come their way through the Pretty Little Lives initiative, also known as Preli Foundation. Preli is donating food items to the 1,000 people who make up this community to cushion the effect of the COVID-19 pandemic.
Muna godiya da wannan tallafi da aka kawo mana. Insha Allah muna ganin kuma kowa da izinin Allah gurgurdan abin da aka kawo mana kuma kowa zai samu.
Each household of 5 persons is entitled to a bag of rice, tubers of yam, groundnut oil, and other packaged foods.
We are grateful and we are very happy. And we wish the people that have done this very well. And we are very grateful. We thank them. And we are going to make sure that by God's grace, we do our best. We try our best to make sure that this thing has been given to the people that are on need of it.
The Preli Foundation was founded by the wife of the National Security Advisor, Nafisa Monguno, and was established basically to cater for young children in Nigeria and improve their lives. She believes with better collaboration between the federal government and non-governmental organizations, much can be achieved.
And that's all from Abuja. Back to you, Amarachi.
Thanks a lot, Linda. Authorities of the Nigeria Police Force are clarifying the status of essential workers in respect of enforcement of the national curfew and interstate movement restriction orders placed by the federal government. In a statement, the Force Public Relations Officer, Frank Mba, says all essential workers, including medical personnel, ambulance service providers, journalists and firefighters, among others, remain exempted from the movement restriction orders as well as the national curfew. Consequently, the Inspector General of Police has directed Zonal Assistant Inspectors General of Police and State Command Commissioners of Police to give maximum effect to these orders and extend due courtesies to essential service providers. Earlier, the Lagos State branch of the Nigeria Medical Association had directed its members to sit at home from 6 p.m. today over what is described as conflicting directives on the enforcement of the curfew in the state. After 58 days in isolation, Mrs. Susan Idoko, the Benue State COVID-19 index case, has finally been discharged from the NCDC Isolation Center, Abuja. She was discharged from the isolation center this evening. After being declared COVID-19 positive in her home state of Benue on March 28th, Mrs. Idoko was later moved to Abuja at her own request. But she's been in a running battle with the authorities over her COVID-19 status and last Friday threatened to sue the government if she was not discharged within 7 days. Meanwhile, the President has approved the sack of the Registrar of the National Examinations Council, NECO, Professor Charles Uwakwe. This is confirmed in a statement from the head of Information and Public Relations Division of NECO, Aziz Sani, who says President Buhari also approved the dismissal of 4 management staff from the services of the council for various offences. According to the statement, the President's directive was conveyed in a letter dated May 11, 2020, and signed by the Permanent Secretary, Federal Ministry of Education, Mr. Sonny Echono, on behalf of the Minister of Education. Time for business news now. Here's BC Adebayo.
Welcome to Business News. Oil marketers have been licensed to begin importation of petroleum products and in the over 2 years sole importer rights of the Nigerian National Petroleum Corporation. According to the Petroleum Products Pricing Regulatory Agency, which gave the permission, the market liberalization has given room for marketers to shop for refined petroleum products from international refiners. The regulatory body also adds that a collaboration with the CBN is ongoing to ensure that foreign exchange is made available to marketers for the petroleum products importation. Meanwhile, latest data from the National Bureau of Statistics shows that 20.89 billion litres of premium motor spirit, otherwise known as petrol, were imported into Nigeria in 2019. A breakdown of the petroleum products importation statistics for full year 2019 shows that 5.15 billion litres of automotive gas oil, 128.11 million litres of household kerosene and 1.07 billion litres of aviation turbine kerosene were also imported into the country within the year. 526.06 million litres of liquefied petroleum gas also came into the country in 2019, while zonal distribution of truck-out volume showed that 20.58 billion litres of PMS were distributed nationwide during the period under review. And it's yet another green day as investors gained almost 130 billion naira at the domestic stock market today as equities maintained its third consecutive positive posture for the week. Akaite Afia gives us details of today's performance.
Hello and welcome to the Stock Market Report. An additional 1.03% or 129.96 billion naira is gained at the domestic stock market today as investors maintain strong interest for listed blue chip equities across 5 critical sectors of the NSE. Now, traders attribute the continued positive trend at the market to the return of foreign portfolio investors following the rebound in crude oil prices as well as payments of dividends by some bellwether companies. The banking sector in particular recorded the strongest performance on the sectoral chart with 2.81% increase, which was largely driven by 4 out of 5 Tier 1 lenders, while Dangote Cement added much shine to the industrial goods sector's performance. Meanwhile, Red Star Express tops a list of 37 gainers with a 10% share price increase. Unity Bank is highest among 5 losers with a 3.85% loss, while Zenith Bank is a major contributor with more than 430 million shares traded today. And that's the Stock Market Report. I'm Akaite Afia.
And that's it on Business News. It's back to you, Amarachi.
Thanks a lot, BC. Still ahead on the news at 10. Latest World Health Organization figures show latest daily increase in cases since the outbreak began. We have this and more from our London studio and around the world in 5. Stay with us. Welcome back on the foreign scene. The World Health Organization is concerned about the increase in number of COVID-19 cases in poor countries, even as many rich nations emerge from lockdown. The global health body says 106,000 new cases of infections of the novel coronavirus have been recorded in the past 24 hours, the most in a single day since the outbreak began, as the total number of cases worldwide approaches 5 million. Here's Simon Pusey with more international news and around the world in 5.
Good evening and welcome to the Channel Studios here in London for your international news around the world in 5. The US President Donald Trump has defended his use of a prescription malaria drug to try to ward off the coronavirus despite medical warnings. Without offering any evidence, Trump told reporters that he thinks hydroxychloroquine gives you an additional level of safety, adding people are going to have to make up their own mind. The US Food and Drug Administration has warned about potentially serious side effects of using the drug in COVID-19 patients.
I think it gives you an additional level of safety. But you can ask, many doctors are in favor of it. Many frontline workers won't go there unless they have the hydroxy. And so, again, this is an individual decision to make. But it's had a great reputation. And if it was somebody else other than me, people would say, gee, isn't that smart?
China says reunification with Taiwan is inevitable and criticized the congratulations of the US Secretary of State Mike Pompeo to Taiwan's newly elected president. China's foreign ministry said that Mr. Pompeo's words seriously damaged the peace and stability of the Taiwan Strait and China-US relations. Pompeo made a statement of congratulations to Taiwan's President Tsai Ing-wen earlier this week. In a speech after being sworn in for her second and final term in office, Tsai said that Taiwan wants dialogue with China but cannot accept its proposal for one country, two systems. China cut off a formal talks mechanism with Taiwan in 2016 after Tsai was elected to office for the first time. In India, heavy rains and winds have lashed the eastern states of Odisha and West Bengal hours before cyclone Amphan made landfall. Rescue teams evacuated millions of villagers in an operation complicated by coronavirus. Extra shelters were being prepared in wholesale markets and government buildings, while masks and scarves were being distributed among the villagers to try to prevent the spread of COVID-19. Similar scenes could be observed in Sri Lanka, where the cyclone has killed at least 2 people. Heavy flooding has caused the collapse of 2 dams in central Michigan in the United States. This prompted officials to call for locals to evacuate the area. That's according to local media reports. Michigan's Governor, Gretchen Whitmer, warned of an historic high water level with the possibility that floodwaters could reach 3 meters in some locations. Residents were advised to seek higher ground as far as possible from the 2 flooding streams, the Tittabawassee River and the Rifle River. The American multinational company Johnson & Johnson has announced it will stop selling its talc-based Johnson's baby powder in the United States and in Canada. According to the company, that would be part of a broad reassessment of its consumer product portfolio, prompted by the COVID-19 pandemic. Johnson & Johnson faces lawsuits from consumers claiming its talcum powder products, including its baby powder, caused cancer, but the company has said it remains confident in their product safety. In Bolivia, residents have taken to the streets to demand an end to the country's coronavirus lockdown. They say the quarantine has left them without food and money. Bolivia is among Latin America's poorest nations, with many families relying on day-to-day informal work to make ends meet. But with restrictions on movement, residents have said they were impoverished by the quarantine and wanted to return to work. Demonstrators created road blockades with rocks and debris, prompting an intervention from the police and the army. Bolivia has recorded more than 4,200 coronavirus cases and over 170 deaths. A French team at a veterinary school is hoping to use dogs to sniff out people who are COVID-19 positive. According to the team, this could work thanks to the particular smell of a sufferer's sweat. The dogs scored at least 86% of success in sniffing out positive cases. However, the study is in its early stages and there has yet to be medical proof to back up these findings. And finally, Captain Tom Moore, who became a national hero in the UK after raising £33 million for the National Health Service in the run-up to his 100th birthday, has become a knight. Captain Moore will become Sir Tom after a special nomination from Prime Minister Boris Johnson. Mr. Moore raised the world record sum of close to £33 million after he completed 100 laps of his garden with the aid of a walking frame. For his 100th birthday last month, Queen Elizabeth agreed that he should be made an honorary colonel. He holds the Guinness World Record for the most money raised by an individual through a walk. And that's your international news around the world in 5. Now back to the Channel studios in Lagos.
The International Paralympic Committee, the IPC, has banned former Paralympic powerlifting champion Esther Oyema for 4 years for committing an anti-doping rule violation. The Nigerian, who won gold at the London 2012 Olympics, returned an adverse analytical finding for a prohibited substance in her urine sample after competing at the Lagos 2019 International Powerlifting Competition. As a result of her violation, Oyema is ineligible to compete until May 2nd, 2023. Chairman of Aqua United FC, Mr. Paul Bassi, wants the completion of the suspended 2019-20 Nigeria Professional Football League season in a neutral venue. Mr. Bassi told Channel Sports that there have been various meetings with club chairmen and that an agreement has been reached to finish the league. Mr. Paul believes if the Nigeria Council of Sport could agree for the suspended National Sports Festival to be held this year, then the league body can also agree for the 18 games left in the league to be completed. Our Kubrat Pulev says he will not step away from his shot at the world heavyweight belt and warned Anthony Joshua, "You either fight or vacate the title." According to him, well, the Bulgarian is a mandatory challenger for Joshua's IBF title, but their planned bout on June the 20th was postponed because of the COVID-19 pandemic. It led to talk of Pulev being paid to step aside so that Anthony Joshua could face Tyson Fury for all 4 heavyweight belts, but the 39-year-old is adamant that he will not be giving up his opportunity this time. And that's Sports News.
Thanks, Ayatunde. The Federal Executive Council has approved the construction of a Faculty of Health Services in Plateau State University, Bauchi, Plateau State. A contract also includes procurement of furniture and equipment. It's one of the 6 memoranda approved at the second virtual meeting of the Council, presided over by President Muhammadu Buhari. Other approvals are the provision of 1,200 computers and accessories for the Nigerian Customs Service, as well as the review of the contract of the purchase of 2 Boeing 737 full flight simulators for Nigerian Aviation Technology in Zaria. And the main news again. More northern states today relaxed COVID-19 lockdown directive, banning religious gatherings ahead of Ramadan festivities. That's the news at 10 tonight. Thanks for watching. I am Amarachi Ubani. Good night and stay safe.